But yeah, I think we should get this started with you just giving a little bit why you do what you do on your YouTube channel, and where does it all come from?
Yeah. Oh God. Uh I feel like as every day goes on, it gets longer, so I'll keep this short. But I essentially am a psychic and I do healing work as a living. And I went through my spiritual awakening when I was 20. So I dropped out of school when I was 17. I really struggled to focus in school. And there was this feeling of like, and I'm sure you can relate on this, is like I've done this before. Like I always felt that this was all like I'd done it before, so I didn't really take a lot of teachers seriously or anything like that. So in retrospect, I failed everything and I was just shocking in school. So I was like, Mom, I'm dropping out. And then I was raised in kind of a different family in the sense of we were very into self-development. So from a young age there was like a lot of introspection that I was like brought up with. Like at the dinner table it was just like not like a normal family conversation, so that kind of helped with it. So
That's cool.
when I was 20, our family abruptly like lost our home. We got evicted overnight, so I was kind of diving into all of this sort of stuff and I was like, I want to do this full time. So I essentially moved to Canada and started posting videos. And in Canada is when my awakening really started rapidly going. And I just started sharing my journey about that. And just every week posting videos on my experience. So it's very evolved. Each week is something new. I'm sure like when you are on a spiritual path, the thing you thought you knew the week before can be completely polarized the next week, right? Or the thing you thought was like the truth of God, it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. So that's what I started doing. And over the years of going to healers, and I was traveling the world and just learning from a lot of people. But the main things that I've learned weren't in a book. They weren't from healers. They weren't from coaches or anything. It was just from purely meditation and going within myself. And that's kind of where my psychic gifts were activated. And a lot of things started coming through, started initiating on a healing journey, which was many dark night of the souls, immensely difficult. But here today and just wanting to share more of this awareness to people that they can expand their consciousness in a sense of diving within themselves, right? I don't think that anyone is necessarily a guru. I think we are all gurus, and it's like a guide back to ourselves is kind of the answer of all of that. So that's kind of what I do on YouTube, but there's no like constricted real answer to it if I'm honest.
So just going with the flow, sharing the love.
Yes, exactly. Doing what I love. Yeah.
hmm
Hmm.
So what sparked this at 20? Where did this, I know I already asked this, but like where did this come from? Like what was this moment of saying, all right, I'm kind of dropping out, tuning in, dropping out, as Tim Leary says. Like what made you walk the path?
Um, I think that there was a lot of suffering in my life, if I'm being really honest. And I think suffering actually does play a very important part in people's lives because it makes you question deeper and dig deeper. So as a child, I was in hospital in my childhood. I was in a wheelchair, so I couldn't walk.
Oh,
So there was a lot of trauma through that, I think. And then in school, I just felt like an alien. I just did not fit in. I really tried. I moved schools twice. So there was this always resentment to the world and to life of feeling this, yeah, frustration. There was a lot of bottled emotions. I was very numbed. And so when I moved to Canada, I was working in this gym job, like crazy hours. I was addicted to working out. So I was working at like 3 hours a day. I would leave my house at 5 a.m. I was just like hustling until I got to a point of complete burnout. Um, and it was specifically one day I'll actually share is I walked into this bookstore. I think it's called Indigo in Canada. And at the time, I'd only really read self-development books. I thought that anything to do with the other, like anything quote unquote woo. Now I find that word really funny. I just literally didn't believe in it at all.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there was breadcrumbs throughout like the experience, but there was one main experience where I walked into this store and there was a book by Gabby Bernstein called Super Attractor, which I think is a beautiful book for people who are just getting into this. But for whatever reason, when I looked at the book, it was my face on the cover. And that really was my first ever kind of spiritual experience where like I literally thought I was losing my mind. I was seeing something that wasn't real. Right. So it was this fascination. So of course I bought the book. I was really confused and I went home. I think I put it on my shelf for like 3 weeks, Gary. And then one day I just felt this pull. I read it. Literally overnight, my spiritual awakening happened. I started to feel this interconnectedness with everything around me. I would go for walks in nature and just feel like I was the universe. I was connected to the trees. Trees are something like I'm so passionate about. And I was feeling them from so far away and feeling the abundance of this entire universe. And that euphoria lasted about like 2 to 3 months. And then I felt guided to move back to Ireland, where the dark night of the soul hit for quite a while, because it
Mm.
kind of went up and then back down. But that was like the first, it literally happened overnight. But I think, again, it was a continuous momentum of moments. And I think it was the perfect timing that was meant to happen. I feel like it was inevitably going to happen, but that was the day it happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm.
yeah, it's a great book though, because it was all about angels and stuff. So I was kind of plunged into the deep end of like not believing it and then kind of being a bit like, what the hell is all of this? But like opening my eyes to it. And then the next week I was like, angels. And it just started like unfolding like that. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Super Attractor.
Yeah, super attractor. My mom would always send me Gabby's videos over the years. And I'd watch them, but the minute she said God, I checked out. I was like, this is
Mm.
weird. But so, I think I was meant to find her book specifically. I don't actually consume any of her stuff anymore, but she was definitely a divine part of my path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
curious. Can I ask you how yours happened? Am I able to ask that?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
just talking.
I'm
um,
curious.
yeah. I don't know. People ask me that, and I don't have any particular like point or book or event. It just comes from like what you said, a sense of suffering, a sense of there's got to be another way to do this thing called life, another way to see ourselves here, see myself here. And that's what it's all about, is that once you can kind of see your suffering and see your being here a little bit differently, then you can kind of transcend your suffering in a way, transcend what you think the suffering is. And yeah, I've had a little bit of a rough childhood. I had this, a lot of sickness, a lot of emotional sickness, just stuff I don't really want to have to go into right now. But it just comes down to me having to find out a different way. And honestly, one particular moment that I remember was getting a ad for the Headspace app. You know Headspace? It's a
Mhm.
meditation app. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm gonna try it out. And then from there, doing the 5-10 minute exercises just kind of turned into me doing it for real, like actually getting into meditation. So people hate on advertisements, but if it wasn't for the advertisement of the Headspace app, I probably wouldn't be here now. So it comes from just this advertisement syncing up to my life at the right time when I needed a different way to go, getting into meditation at that point, getting into smoking some cannabis at that point, getting into magic mushrooms at that point, and then just allowing me to examine my worldly troubles a little bit differently here as a human being. I don't have one point, like I said, but it was like this era in my life where I was kind of like going through the dark night of the soul, like you said, and just divine grace happened with these certain tools and exercises that we have came into my life at the right time in the right place, and here I am doing a podcast with you talking about them a few years later. So I don't know. I guess it just summing it up comes from not even just me. I've heard this from other people. It comes from our suffering. It comes from us having to find a different way, see the life of Prakriti, the illusion of Maya, be able to see through that. You use Maya, use Prakriti to be able to find that essence within us of Purusha, like the state, the unfallible state of bliss, ecstasy, peace, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're supposed to do. It's use our suffering in order to help us grow, to be able to ascend so that we don't suffer anymore. That's kind of what it comes from. It's like energy transmutation. Like how do you want to
Mm.
use this suffering in order to be able to change yourself in order to see it differently. And I think it's a never ending path. It's a never ending thing. Like you said, it just keeps going. But I think, um, what am I trying to say here? It never ends, but there's a way out, I guess. If to anybody listening to this and is going through some shit, it sounds weird. It's like, well, if it never ends, then why do I want to do it? But it's like it's the journey is the destination type of thing. Like the viewpoint is that we're supposed to suffer. I know that sounds weird, but it's like our suffering is supposed to bring us out of the darkness in order to see the light. We need to have the darkness in our lives to be able to shed the light, that little glimmer of light that's within us, all of us. Some may call it God, some may call it infinite consciousness, some may call it the light, source, whatever you want to call it. It's within all of us, and it's the sense of hope, it's the sense of peace that we all yearn for. And we have to use our darkness and transmutate that energy um, uh, with the techniques that we've been given from people in the past in order to be happy, because that's what life's all about. Yeah, sorry, I went off on a little tangent there, but I think I answered your question. I hope I answered your question.
That was like a divine flow. I love it. Yeah, no, what you're saying is it's just like an unfolding of every moment that, like with your awakening pathway, it's just an unfolding of that kind of happened. But I completely
Hmm.
agree. I think that firstly, I think our higher selves love that when we go through all the pain or all this, not love, but it's so expansive for our souls to experience that, because I believe we incarnate to anchor in light, but also metamorphose. So we
Hmm.
have to go in, like you think of a butterfly, it has to go into such a confined space as a caterpillar before it's able to spread its wings, like pressure. And um, I think that's the beauty of this life, is like the duality of it, like, spirituality. It's like spirit and everything, and the duality of that. It's like experiencing it all. Um, so yeah, but it's interesting about the suffering thing, because I speak to a lot of people, and I think suffering as a purpose, but it's not our natural state that we have to be in. Like it's not like what we come here to do. It has a purpose to it.
Yeah.
That again, we're alchemizing.
Hmm.
Like you said
Exactly.
that. We're alchemizers, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And there's no other way, because I've come to find it's either you stay on the hamster wheel of suffering, woe is me, or you can get off by following this path. And I think collectively that's what's happening in the world, is people are saying to themselves, there's got to be another way. Like I said, all in their own way, all in their own karma, all in their own circumstances. And we're finding the other way. And from us finding the other way, we're finding the kingdom of heaven that lies within. And it's true. Once we build the kingdom of heaven within, and then we'll build the kingdom of heaven without. This is literally what's happening right now. We're living through some kind of renaissance. And it's all
Mm.
because we're not aligned. We're, like you said, it's not our natural state to suffer. We're actually, contrary to popular belief, everybody, we're actually supposed to be happy here. We're supposed to enjoy this life. And we're not conditioned into that. Like we're conditioned
Mm.
into you gotta work, you gotta provide, you gotta do this, the grind, the popular saying of the grind. And it's just a very um our reality is just very there's a lot of inertia in just existing. But really our true state of being, our birthright, is a state of non-resistance. It's a state of calm, cool collectedness. It's peace, it's love, and it's happiness. And I know that sounds like some hippie talk, but it's actually the truth. Like when you go within enough, when you meditate enough on really truly what you are, beyond the drama of your life, beyond the movie, the narratives, what you've been told you are, beyond the egotistical tendencies, you'll find that deep down, all of us are supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be almost like angelic beings. And that's what we're all coming to. We're coming to a state of consensus of, oh, we've been living a lie. We've been living a
Mm.
lie this whole time. And where does it come from? I don't know. The lizard people, the Illuminati, gray aliens, who knows? I don't
Mhm.
know. But all I know is that humanity has been under a spell for thousands of years. And I know that because I realized that I was under a spell for I'm 29 now. For probably 20 years, 25 years of my life, I was under a spell, living in this weird illusionary reality that just didn't correspond to my happiness. So if I was doing that, then most likely other people are living in that. I can see it. I can feel it, that
Mhm.
we're all living in this like weird it's a mirage of really what a human being is supposed to be. I don't even know what was your, did you have a question? Like, where did we go
I
off?
can't remember, but what you
You feel
said
what I'm
there was
saying though?
no, absolutely is especially the illusion. And the thing that am I able to curse on here?
Fuck
No?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. The thing that really fucks with you is when you experience the illusions that you were told were going to make you happy and make you feel fulfilled and feel worthy, and they do nothing of the sort. That's what really fucks with you because you're left with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like,
Yeah.
sorry, what you were saying there is for me, for example, when I was 12, I started YouTube and I always wanted to be a YouTuber. That was like the thing I wanted. So when I dropped out of school, it was to be a YouTuber. And I always said to myself, like, when I get 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to feel like, so fulfilled within myself. I'm going to finally feel happy and worthy within myself. And when I got it, it was the literally the week I hit that milestone was probably one of the most depressing weeks of my life because it was
Mm.
like, what now? What like now? What do we do?
Exactly.
There was a multitude of other like things, but it was seeing through that illusion and that veil. That's what really frightened me. Was seeing through the ego of everyone, or seeing the illusion of like Hollywood and seeing all the celebrities and just everything. I was so pissed because I felt so lied to by society. I felt so lied to by the narrative from movies. And I don't even, again, you say, I don't know what one thing it was. I think it's like an unspoken thing that people just believe until we experience it. That's why I really like Jim Carrey. I feel he sounds crazy to a lot of people. A lot of people don't even understand what he's trying to say. But once you kind of get it, you're like, it can be frightening. But on the other side of that, because the truth is so scary to the ego, it was scary to me anyway, terrified. But when you kind of move through that, which I think takes integration and like patience, like um of just surrendering from your ego into a space that's beyond just you, it's the most rewarding thing that you'll ever experience. Because I think you're being guided by something that's much, it's not just about you. You're not just serving yourself, which I think
Yeah.
it it fuels you, it feeds you, and life becomes such a cliche saying, but so magical because you're being so guided by a force. Um, and beyond the synchronicity, just the orchestration, I call it like divine orchestration, like the way things just unfold are, you cannot make it up. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
like I'll just explain, like, I think it was like last week I had to go into town to meet a friend and there was no taxis. They kept canceling on me. Um, and so I like tuned into Saint Germain. I really like connecting to Saint Germain, like the Violet Flame. And I just asked, I was like, please send a taxi. And I've done this so many times. And like 2 minutes later, a taxi will show up. And the guy who was in it was called Germain.
Oh.
And we had the most amazing conversation. He was a conspiracy theorist, which I love conspiracy people. I know it's not my purpose to speak about it, if I'm being honest. It never felt, but I'm so engrossed by people who are, because I think they're so brave.
Mm.
And we were just chatting. I think I stayed in his taxi another like an extra 15 minutes just talking to him because it was so intriguing. But that's just like an example of it. It's like when you tune into the deeper aspect, the collective consciousness or whatever, the higher power. I switch between God, universe. I know universe is a very popular way. I say God is what resonates with me, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you activate your heart and you tune into that, life is just like a painting. It's just you can't make it up, and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I think that is what fuels people like you and me to show that, because the way the system is set up is so logical. It's so controlling. It's so linear, which has a purpose, but there's such a deeper aspect to it all. And I think um, the lockdowns really awakened that in humanity, which was kind of the feminine side of us, like the divine feminine of like intuition, going more with the flow and following that guidance. Because there's not much rational logicalness to that. But I think that's what the world needs, right? When we look at like I'm very passionate about plants and nature and trees. And I think the world is kind of a representation of how much the feminine has been suppressed in the world, of like care for Mother Earth or care for the people. And I think we're living in a mad time. I'm not sure when it's gonna start. Like it could be in 100 years when we're checked out, but I feel like in the next like 500 years, like the world is gonna go through like the biggest shift ever.
Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. It's already
Mm-hmm.
here. It's already started. The cat's out of the
Mm-hmm.
bag. We already opened up Pandora's box, and yeah, we might not be here, but we're like the elders. You know, we're like laying the groundwork for this new found state of living and seeing yourself and being a human.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
know
it's
what I
pretty.
find funny is
What's up?
like the more the higher power, like higher systems of control and like the darker agenda forces, it's like awakening people more and more,
Exactly. It's so easy to
which
see through.
I know it is. But what do you think in the sense of it's like, I also believe when like there's a lot of people that aren't meant to essentially wake up in this lifetime. And I'm sure you've tried it. I've gone through that phase of like just spewing truth onto people and it never works. It's like
Hmm.
they have blocked ears. They're
Yeah.
not going to listen because it's all from their own journey. So there's like this confusion in me sometimes of, you are here to spread more light and anchor it in. I think that's one of the main reasons, is just to have our body here to anchor that vibration into the world. But also this understanding that like everyone's walking themselves home in their own timing. And I actually even forgot what I was just about to say there as well with the question, but
I feel like you were about to ask me like about what our obligation is to others that aren't necessarily on that wavelength.
yeah,
And
sorry. Yeah. Cause you said when you see through it, it's very hard to ignore. Like you can't, you like it almost I don't want to say entertainment, but like I find I watch the news just to purely like,
just to laugh.
yeah, just to be like, what like,
Hmm.
what?
Hmm.
Um, but then another part of me then thinks of all these like people watching it who are so vulnerable, and it makes me so upset and like
Yeah.
angry. And I think that's what fuels it, I guess, a little, is like these people being so vulnerable and just infested in fear. And I think that's what's causing so much illness,
Yeah.
disconnection. And I mean, yeah, it's like the older generation, but also the younger generation. Like you were saying with TikTok, I get really riled up about TikTok because
Yeah.
I can see how much it's like, I don't want to say messing up, but really brainwashing the younger generation as well with their attention span, but also but what they're consuming. Are
Hmm.
you on TikTok? Do you consume it?
I don't consume it. I just create it. I just post stuff very rarely, but I don't go on it. Any of these like these new ways of doing social media, like when it's in terms of shorts, reels, and TikTok, and how it's just kind of like endless scrolling, 60-second increments. I'm not into that at all. That's not my vibe at all because I know it's just
Yeah,
not good for our brain. And
I
especially
know.
because like the things that it's showing you, it's selected and pertained for you. You know, they know what your interests are, so it's trying to keep you sucked in to that feed as long as it can. So I'm not on that at all. It's not my vibe. I try to stay off social media altogether. Like I just use it to create. I try not to consume because most of the time, like it's not even for my own benefit. You know, I get lost in like weird wormholes and
You do
it's,
get lost. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I had a span where I was on TikTok and I was going through it and I realized like, whoa, this is a problem. I'm getting these like weird
Mm-hmm.
itch to go on there and scroll. And after that, I realized it was a problem. Like, this is not right. There's something in me, in my being, that feels like this is not right. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just messing up our brain and how we're able to concentrate. Like how we started off this whole conversation. It's just like literally, I think, rewiring the way that our brains are, and from there, it's just rewiring how we think, and then thus that's changing up our consciousness, and that's not good. It's making it so we can't concentrate. and then we
I
can't keep
know.
our attention and focus on anything for more than 60 seconds. Like I said, it's
I
not good.
know. And they're pushing that agenda more and more, I think.
Yeah.
Well, on even on YouTube now with shorts and stuff, it's
Yeah.
like pushing, pushing, pushing. But I
Hmm.
feel like there's going to be a halt where people are like, this is going too far, but I'm not sure when that'll be.
One side of me thinks that we're moving toward heaven on earth and that everybody's going to wake up. But then the other side of me is like, oh, there's no way. Everybody's just way too lost in the
There's no
sauce.
way.
I
There's
mean,
no way.
you kind of have to be a realist about it, you know. Draw the line between idealism and realism, and there's one side of me. I don't know which one to listen to. There's one side of me that says this is this is inevitable. We're gonna live on heaven on earth. Like, how can people not live on this wavelength? You know, how can you ignore the truth with a capital T? But then the other side of me is like, well, maybe not. Maybe there is just inevitably going to be a sense of darkness. There's always going to be that sense of Babylon, you know, the sense of the machine, so that the chosen ones, per se, quote unquote, can see through that. Almost like that needs to be here in order to be able to see through it, see how it is a joke, and then guide the ones that are supposed to be guided into a sense of themselves. I don't know which one to listen to, because I'd like to think that we're all going to be on that wavelength because we're all human beings. But I just don't see it happening anytime soon. There's a lot of people that are getting lost just in the programming, the literal programming of this world. And I don't know, maybe like you said, it's going to reach a point where it just gets so just crazy, just way too intense, and people will definitely be able to see through it. Like, the more and more intrusive it gets, the more people will wake up. But
Mm.
everybody, do you think everybody will be on that wavelength? I
I
don't
think
know.
that it has to get darker before it gets lighter, though, because if you think about, um, it depends what way you want to go, but like, you know, when people say like light is being shone onto the earth, the sun codes, like the frequencies, right? I think Mother Earth is a being, right? It's no coincidence. Our heart is the same, it literally the same frequency match to the heart of the earth. We are Gaia, we are Earth. And I think Earth is shifting frequency, whether we like it. That's why when they said like the road to 5D, like a lot of it is wishy washy, but the Earth's electromagnetic field, I think, is shifting frequency. And so things will have to shift on Earth because we're residing on her and our bodies are a part of her.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like it will have to get crazier or darker before it gets better because how we see the shadow is through light, right? So when things are going to keep pushing, it's actually revealing what already was kind of there. Like this world has had so much darkness in it for such a long time. It's just people are starting to see it. So they think it's more now, when in
Yeah.
reality, it's always been there. It's just been hidden. So I think it's a mix of both, but I do think in the next 500 years, I do think there is this like the golden age, I think, is here. It's depending on, again, all our own perceptions and all, because that's the crazy thing is like we can create it in whatever way we want to see it. So that can sometimes be delusion or it can be, but from my understanding, I do think that we are in a magical time, and I think it will within the next 500 years. I really strongly feel like people seeing angels is going to become such a normal thing in the next 10 years. That's
Mm.
just what I personally believe. I know it sounds very out there, but when I tune into my guides and all these sort of things, I think all the spiritual stuff is going to be revealed more and more. But I also think if every person on the world awakened at the exact same time, this world would collapse. Like people would go crazy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Hmm.
like
Yeah, it wouldn't
absolutely
work.
crazy. So I think we have to walk through this and experience this and go through all the difficulty and the suffering so that in 30 years, per se, when the next group of people start to awaken, there's people who can assist them and can help them. So that's your
Yeah.
duty and your purpose, is to help those people. So I think because the ego, like my ego is like, I want it all just now, but it's like the soul is so patient because it knows we're timeless. So it's like there's no rush. It's all happening in divine accordance, I think.
Hmm.
I always look at trees to kind of reflect that back. Like the leaves fall off every autumn and they regrow. It's like renewing, death, rebirth. It'll happen in its own timing, but we have to go through things first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. If everybody were to just right now, it wouldn't work. The world just wouldn't work.
Oh yeah. Think
The
about like
system.
bin men, people who collect our bins, or the farmers, like
Is
the
bin
whole.
men is that like a trash person?
Yeah. Oh,
What?
sorry, the garbage.
Yeah, we don't say that in
Yes.
America. I think we say the trash guys. I like
Oh,
that though. The
okay.
bin
Well,
men.
yeah. Yeah, the bin men.
Go ahead. Sorry to
Uh,
mess you up.
yeah, I think like the whole system would collapse.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I I'm so curious with you, like with me, I went to like I've been just learning all these things. I went to a vegetable growing course. Like I really want to go off grid and grow my own food. Like there's just so much, there's like this element of me that's super into the spiritual realm, and right, and I think the divine love or the higher power is all that everyone needs to awaken, but I also think you can also make your human experience amazing with connecting more to earth. And like
Same
I
thing.
also see, yeah, I feel like I see the illusion on the earth side with the food, with the toothpaste, with like when I first started kind of tuning into my psychic abilities. At the time I was using this like conditioner. I was also wearing fake tan a lot, and the first things in my meditation, like one of the first things they said to me was quit this conditioner and quit this fake tan. And a year later, fake tan, this fake tan has now been banned from Europe because it's causing women to become infertile.
Wow.
And the conditioner has been taken off all the shelves in America and the world because, again, it's causing women to be infertile.
Jeez.
So
From the
there's
hair?
the,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
because our hair is an extension of our nervous system. So, like, whatever we're putting on our body, I'm like I used to be a makeup artist when I was 18 till 20. So I was very into all that. So the I think it's all connected, but I had a spiritual awakening, like an holistic earth awakening of kind of seeing how much shit we were putting on our body and in our body, even like spray deodorants. And I think all of those things are capping our connection to God. But we don't, like, we can connect to God in any way we want, but it's like these things are numbing us to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like even our rubber shoes, they're disconnecting us from the earth's frequencies. Like the earth has an aura of itself when we connect our feet. Like if you even look at your feet, they look like trees. They have roots growing on them. Like they have like all the symbolisms that the earth will have.
Mm.
And I think there's all these things, like even I can't wear polyester clothing. My skin hives up so much. It's like the hypersensitive gift was also so like I couldn't ignore it. I'm assuming you're sensitive as well. I think a lot of like, or maybe you're not, but
Like physically?
like a highly, like a sensitive person.
Yeah, I'm emotionally sensitive.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that sensitivity kind of pushed me, like, you know, to quit all these different things, which kind of dug me even deeper um into my heart space. So like when you say bridging heaven to earth, I think it's bringing down the heavenly energy, but also help this earth and
Yeah.
whatever's going on in this, because it has been hijacked,
Yeah.
um as you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we're just becoming more real, whether it's
Yeah,
physically or spiritually. We're just approaching a sense of being authentic with ourselves, being real.
authentic. Yes, that is it. I even read somewhere ages ago, or I can't remember where I saw it, and it said even an atheist can be living one of the most spiritual lives, because as long as we're authentic and we're not masking ourselves and putting up these facades of illusions,
Mm-hmm.
that is a spiritual experience, because we're just being who we were meant to be. So I thought that was interesting. That kind of crushed a paradigm for me as well, kind of
Yeah.
thinking like atheists are wrong. But then I think that, again, the right or wrong mentality is something like that isn't benefiting people either. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's one foot in, one foot out for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think atheists are halfway there
Yeah,
because
because they're
I'm
questioning.
because they're questioning, and I mean, I'm an atheist to every most people's prescription of God. So I guess you could say I'm an atheist as well. Like most people would see me as a heathen. They would see me as a what's that word when somebody like sacrilegious? I guess you could say. Most people would see the things that I'm doing, like a popular Christian or a Catholic of the Bible Belt. They would see me as like a devilish figure, and the things that I'm talking about.
Satanic. Yeah.
Satanic, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think atheism is actually the right way there. And I'm saying that because I was an atheist before all of this thing. Because what God is, is truly unspeakable, but I guess I'm going to try and speak about it right now. It's not what the Bible prescribes to everybody in the way that it's told, in the way
Mm.
that it's told by the guys in the collared shirts. It's not
Yeah.
like that. And that's what I saw through at an early age, is that that's not doesn't feel right in my being. But then if you go a little bit deeper within yourself, that's where you can find this essence of God that really Jesus was talking about and all of these other ascended masters were talking about. So atheism is actually, they're not wrong per se. They're just not there yet. They're almost there. I think atheists, even though I would say I believe in God and they would say they don't believe in God, I think I have more in common with someone who's an atheist than someone who is a devout Baptist Catholic of the Bible Belt. I mean, that's a generalization, obviously, but you know what I'm getting at. It's that
Totally.
it's that it's that
Yeah.
questioning of authority. It's that saying,
Yes.
maybe that guy doesn't have the answer that's preaching. Um,
Yeah.
but the thing is
Sovereignty.
exactly, sovereignty and your own point of view of what it means to be a human being. That's really what it comes down to.
Totally. I think that's literally what a spiritual awakening is. It's sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because if a TV is telling you something that doesn't feel right within your being, and you're listening to this over your own intuition, which I think is such a given gift. It's like, yeah, that's what you're saying. It's like sovereignty. So you said there when you were reading this, the Bible, it didn't feel right in your being. So that's your guidance system to follow this path that you're going on. It's all about that intuition. I'm reading a book. Let me grab it. I don't read. I'm very like conscious of the books I read, but this is called Anna, and it's Jesus's grandmother.
Oh,
I love Mary Magdalene. I'm very connected to. I love Mary Magdalene, and this book is this woman who essentially was receiving like telepathic messages from Anna, which is Jesus's grandmother. And it just kept coming to her. She was a psychic, and she channeled a whole book about Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and it's very interesting if you were to question the Bible or anything like that. Like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, it felt very right to me. It's an amazing book though, but it was like you were saying, for example, Jesus was preaching again for us to come back to ourselves, not to see him as a God or someone above, but to see it that it's all within us.
yeah.
So that's why it's like the awakening of sovereignty, awakening to your own truth, your own authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's such a beautiful journey. But it's terrifying because well, for me, it's like you have to go against everything that you were taught, and then you're considered crazy or a black sheep. And you're also a massive trigger for people. Like, we're
Yeah.
here to trigger people as well. Trigger is beautiful because it's triggering things within them. It's bringing up things within you. So triggering people is like another aspect that I found quite difficult to get used to, is like when you're saying these beliefs that you feel are true, and then someone's mind is like, well, no, that's not true. And it's like this, but you're meant to plant seeds, you're meant to trigger people. So I don't know why I say that, but it's a beautiful book if you're interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Yeah. And there's a lot about like, because I know in the Catholic Church, like sex is very shamed, and sexuality and sensuality in the woman's body. And it's a very beautiful book for that, because it really releases a lot of shame. I respect everyone's religion, and I actually have a lot of clients who are Christian, and I respect that for them. Me personally, I wouldn't call myself that. I was raised a Christian. I went to like a Christian church. I mean, school, we go to church like every day, but to me, I was left with so much shame. It's like the Irish people call it the Irish guilt, but I think all the world have it. It's like, just being told that, having a body is like, should be ashamed of, and all this sort of stuff that was built up. So for me, it was a blessing because it awakened that healing journey to integrate back into my body specifically, and my sense of self. But I think I don't even know why I was saying that book is just beautiful for that, because it releases that whole fear factor that a lot of religions use to control people, because fear is
Mm-hmm.
a way to latch on and hook people in, because source and or God or the infinite, you can't see it, right? So people can use that to their own advantage, and act as the pillar, like a priest, for example, or someone they we were kind of conditioned to, oh, we have to go to
Yeah.
this person to
An
connect to
authority
God.
figure. Mm-hmm.
Yes, instead of them teaching, you can connect to God, or whatever word you want to say, within you. And that's the thing that was, I think, missing in a lot of those ways, because that's how you hook people or control people, because you make them powerless and disempowered. So that book, for example, is just beautiful because it's all about going within. Yeah.
Yep. That's what
Mm-hmm.
the journey's about. It's about finding that sense of sovereignty and freedom that we all have. And it's very interesting too, because you get that sense of freedom. Realize that we do truly have free will here. But there's also a sense of surrender.
Oh, yes.
So it's like, I can exercise, do what thou wilt, as Aleister Crowley says. I can do what I want, but I'm going to use my will to choose not to choose love, to choose God and surrender to that force. That's what this whole thing's about, is we use our God-given free will, that once you find out and you go within and you find out, oh, I actually do have this power to manifest whatever I want. And you get these certain CDs within yourself, psychic abilities, whatever. You actually, I guess if you're a white magician, you find out that there's no other way to go about using those abilities than for the creator that gave you those abilities, that gave you that grace. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I have the freedom, but I'm going to surrender to that sense, that greater force within me to better the world, because ultimately that's bettering, well, it's bettering myself, and that's how we better the world. It's, as above, so below, because ultimately that's how we find peace and happiness here. It's not through using those our free will, our power that we are granted, I guess you could say, to get a Lamborghini or Maserati or a nice house or nice clothes or a bunch of women or something like that. You can have those things, but just know, if you use it for those, your power for those materialistic ideations, it's not going to amount to happiness. So those things can definitely come into our life, but it's like, don't focus just on materialism. It's like, use your power to serve others, essentially. That's really what it comes down to. There's no other way. Like, I feel like once you kind of take the red pill to this path, you reach an obligation with
Yeah.
the creator to further the creation. There's no other way. Even though I know I could do whatever I want right now. Really, I could do whatever I want right now, but I'm not going to. And I think for some reason that's freedom. I don't know how. It's like, because I know that I have the freedom to do so, but I'm not. And I'm choosing in my freedom to surrender to God. And that's happiness. I don't know how else to sum it up, but that is a sense of flow in this life. There's a sense of just, like I said, peace. There's a certain sense of just one with whatever's going on, the ultimate change that I seem to be caught in, not going against the tide, one with the Tao, as some may call it. And that is where, for me, speaking from personal experience, I'm not trying to preach here, but for me, that's where happiness and peace lies, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, I love that. I can literally feel that as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's yeah, same with me. Free will made me miserable. And
Hmm.
I think about this a lot. So I'm actually glad you brought that up about free will. People saying you have free will, and there's also this thing called karma. So
Yeah, that too.
free will me like, oh, I'm gonna run around and destroy the planet, or do all these different things. It was the same with me. I was a hyper controller in my life, and I knew surrender was the way, and took me about a year to do it. I was afraid of it, like actually terrified of it, because I
Mm-hmm.
was so afraid if I let go, what would happen. I'm very, Kali Ma, like the goddess Kali Ma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she kind of comes into your life to shake things up and take everything. So there was a time in my life where I'd say for about 3 months, I was going through a very deep death within myself and an identity, and everything was kind of taken. So I didn't really have anything to lose. So I just surrendered because I couldn't keep serving for myself. I couldn't keep, and I think you're the same. It's like we can do things for ourselves, but it doesn't fulfill that. But when you do surrender over to that force, you're so looked after.
Yeah.
But that's when you realize, because like even the term self love, it's like the way we're taught self love is so much greater when you're connecting it to a higher force because it's unconditional, right? It's not like
Yeah.
self love. I love myself because I look like that or anything like that. It's a greater aspect to us, and I think surrender is that beautiful thing, like you said, because it's like we are nature, okay? Like our bodies are. So when we're going against nature, like you said, we're going against the tide. Like nature doesn't glue its leaves back onto it. It lets them go and it surrenders to that transformation. But then the new comes, and we have to let go in order to allow change to occur. And I think that's the thing, is like so many humans are scared of that because we've been taught to cling on for dear life and be safe and play it safe. But there's always this feeling within your heart, and I'm sure you relate, like what you said there is like you just know you're so looked after, and
Yeah.
it's such a more greater cause. It's not superficial. It's not, nothing will quench your thirst until you experience a surrendered way of life,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. It's bhakti.
completely. Sorry,
It's bhakti.
what's that?
It's devotional yoga. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah, it's like surrendering to. I mean, a lot of people they say they surrender to a guru, like a master, but you can have that guru within. You can surrender and have devotion to the guru that's within us all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's bhakti yoga. Um,
You
yeah,
find though that your life becomes more beautiful than what you thought it would be, like what your ego thought was beautiful, if that makes any sense. Like
yeah,
for me, I wanted not a Lamborghini, but I wanted that life. Very much so. And now my life to a lot of people could seem very boring or seem very simplistic or seem
yeah.
almost hippie hobo.
Well, what do
But
you
to
find
me,
beautiful?
sorry,
What do you find beautiful?
simplicity. I just love simplicity.
Yeah, yeah,
A simplistic life. I just moved home and I just want to be near nature, have very deep connections with people. I don't like superficial shit. I don't want a lot of people in my life, just real deep, authentic people and good food. And that
of
makes me
course.
really happy. And crystals and angels. Um, there's a bit more to that, but I love simplicity. I love peace. And to some people that could seem like great. Like, are you not bored? Are you not like feel like what? Like, it's like your desires become so small, but they're everything to you. Like, I don't want a big house. I would love a small little cottage, or something like that. But I also think people who desire those big things, there's some people who have to experience that as well. But that's just, again, the sovereignty, my personal desire. And I'm sure yours is whatever you personally desire.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
very similar, though. I think the path entails finding that simplicity within ourselves and our own circumstances and our own karma. Just think about what a monk is. A monk is the most extreme example of simplicity. They're not saying everybody's going to be a monk. I'm not saying that at all. But we can use their life as an example, as a lesson for all of us to say, maybe they're onto something, and then reflect that in our own lives. And that's what it's all about. The spiritual path isn't about adding anything to our life. We may add some things here and there, things that we actually do desire, but it's not about accumulating material possessions or clout, money, or anything like that. It's actually more so about taking away things that we don't need. What does not serve my happiness? What is not conducive to me going with this so-called flow? That's what I found in my life. I've gotten rid of, sounds cold, but I've gotten rid of people that don't serve me.
It's not
Gotten rid
cold.
of, it's not
Not at
cold,
all.
just the truth.
It's essential.
Yeah. and gotten rid of people. Um, I don't know, jobs, food. Definitely simplified my diet, simplified the
Mm.
media that I consume, my clothing. I don't know. All facets of my life have just become more, I guess, streamlined, more just straight and narrow, less because there's so much to consume nowadays. There's so much to take in. It's pretty much infinite in the world that we live in the Western world. There's so much that we can take in, whether it's physically or literally in through our five senses with the media that we consume. So I think it's good to have a direction within that, within this crazy matrix that we find ourselves in. It's good to simplify yourself and what you really want, and that's the path. I think getting on what we were getting at before, how the world seems to be going in this weird dystopian future of just like craziness and just endless stimuli with TikTok and social media. I think people are going to find that it's just going to be overwhelming. Like it's going to be just way too much going on. There's only so much the mind can handle. This monkey brain, there's only so much it can handle. So I think people are going to realize that like this is not conducive to my happiness. This is making me crazy. Literally, I think it's causing mass psychosis in people. And I can see it. I can feel it. So I think what's going to happen is this renaissance, this great awakening, this 5D state of consciousness, one could say. It's really just a great simplification of being a human being. And to be honest with you, being a human being is actually pretty simple. It's not difficult. We overcomplicated ourselves. We gotten ourselves into this mess. All of this crazy darkness that you see in the world, that's just our karma. That's just our collective karma from lifetimes and lifetimes of trying to find happiness in status and material things, just built up over and over again. But when it really comes down to it, our peace and happiness isn't in that. And the more that we try to get in that, the more we build up karma for the future. But if we can all get on that wavelength, or at least in our own life, get on that wavelength of realizing how easy it is. I mean, I wouldn't say easy because it's not easy. I don't really like to say that, but how simple it is to be alive, to just be a human being, to exist, right? What do we need here? That's the thing, is examine what we need. That's what I like to do. I think a large part of my path is realize is examining what does Gary need in this life. Well, starting at the basics, I need food and water, maybe a bed, maybe shelter. Even if that, maybe you don't need that. Maybe food. Some people say they live off of light. Some people, I say they don't even drink water. But what I'm trying to get at is, you know what I mean? But what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at is that it's not, we overcomplicate our lives, our existence here, our incarnation as a human being with these hands and this mind and the five senses. We dig our own graves in a way, when really we're all going to come to find out it's so simple to just be here and be happy. And that comes with that sense of surrender, that sense of examining, wait, what's really going on? What is this? What is this? And just asking the question, how do I be happy? What am I? Who is this that's finding this happiness? Sitting down and just being curious. And eventually that leads to, like we mentioned before, that sense of surrender to God. And then once you surrender to God, the source, the greater consciousness, the infinite, the Tao, the flow, whatever you want to call it, once you can find that surrender to the flow, that's where it lies. It's simple. It really is, man. It's so simple to be a human being. Not saying it's easy. We all got shit we're going through. There's a lot of turmoil and karma that we all have. We're all living in this cursed world. Like I said, is it from the lizard people, the Illuminati? Who knows? But all I know is we're off our rocker a little bit here. So
Off
it's
our
not.
rocker.
So
That's
it's
such an
not.
Irish term.
Is it really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
off our rocker.
We're off our rocker,
Yeah.
and we have a lot to go through. So it's not easy. It's not easy. But we didn't go to the moon because it was easy. We went because it was hard. So we gotta go to the moon within ourselves. We're all gonna do that. Find our way to happiness and realize the truth that's been hidden in plain sight this whole time. That it's pretty simple being a human being here. And thus, kumbaya. We reach that heaven-like state. We're getting there. It might take some time.
Yeah, no, I love that. I just feel called to share as well, if anyone's listening, what you said there with simplicity is just because I've heard that from a lot of people as well. Deep in meditation, I know even people doing plant medicine, and they all receive that guidance. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Which is just the 4 elements. Like you said there, you literally said it: food, water, your face, like it's the breath, your breath of life. So it's literally water, air, fire, and earth. Like I think those are elements are literally what makes the world go round. Water is what makes the world go round. All these different things. That's also a beautiful way, I think, to connect to the simplicity is the elements, and that you're getting them in each of your days. I guess.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done psychedelics or plant medicine?
No, I felt cold to do ayahuasca a few years ago, but I wouldn't do it now. I
I don't think you
feel
need to.
huh?
I don't think you need to.
I feel I actually know it's a knowing that I'm meant to be sober. I never had issues with alcohol. I just don't like drinking alcohol. I don't drink alcohol really. But it's just I'm very sensitive to stimulants and to things, like even coffee I can't drink. The only thing I go as far as is cacao. I'm a cacao ceremonialist, so I love cacao, but that's like the limit for me. I just it's been a strong knowing I've always meant to be kind of sober, not meant to mingle with that. But I also respect people that do it, because I think that, again, each to their own. Some people are you're quite drawn to them, aren't you?
I used to be. I'm not really anymore. That's the appealing thing for me, is that you don't have to do mushrooms once a day, once every 2 days or whatever it is. There's not, first of all, it's not physically addicting. Second of all, it's also not psychologically addicting. You don't want to do ayahuasca, DMT, or mushrooms that much. You'll go crazy. It's something that you just do if you're a yogi, if you're a person of this mindset, or maybe it'll get you on this mindset, but who knows? I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. But it's something that, if you have the right foundation, I guess you could say, in your being, will allow you to flip the light bulb switch on and get the message. And then once you get the message, like Alan Watts says, you hang up the phone. So I think they're very useful for doing that. It's catalyzing people onto a path. That's, I guess, like we're talking about now. But they can also be used for recreational purposes, quote unquote, and used dangerously. So I'm not about that. But they're also, like I said, you don't have to use them all the time. I haven't done mushrooms in a long time. I haven't smoked weed in a long time, but I know what they've done for me in the past. And I think that's what's important, is the messages and the teachings that I got from it, the wake up call, I guess you could say, that I got from it. I mean, I didn't really believe in so-called God until I did mushrooms, until I had that felt experience of that love. And people know that are listening to this and have done a large dose of mushrooms or DMT, ayahuasca, whatever it is, whatever the chemical key is. People know what I'm talking about here. Like that felt sense, that intimacy of God that you get when you're on that. You don't just get inebriated. It's not an intoxicated feeling like alcohol would be. It's like this. It's just like I can't even explain to you, to be honest. But it's this dawning of just, there he is. There's God. It's like you feel it within your being, and there's nothing else like that. I can't say anything to convey that feeling. You just have to feel it. You just have to. If you know, you know. But if you don't need it, I don't think, like, if you're already on this wavelength and we're going back and forth having this conversation, I don't think you need it. But there's some people that need that wake up call in their life. And like I said, you might need it once, twice, 3 times, whatever it is, but you don't need to do it all the time. And if you do enough in the right circumstances with the right people in the right situation, it will allow you to have that newfound belief in a greater power than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Completely.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Yeah.
I think that is true. It's it can be the catalyst for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A big catalyst for people.
A lot of people, like Ram Dass, Those mushrooms, Alan
Was
Watts.
it?
Yeah, Ramdas. You know Ramdas, obviously, right?
No, I do. I didn't know that that was the catalyst for him.
Well, I mean, yeah, he did mushrooms with Timothy Leary, and their whole story behind Ramdas. I don't want to go too much into it. Ramdas and Timothy Leary were both Harvard uh, teachers. They were professors, and they somehow came across LSD and mushrooms, which were legal in the late 50s, I think. So they were psychology teachers. So obviously they heard about the stories behind this and the crazy landscapes of the mind that people go to. So like, we got to try this thing. So naturally they did. They tried mushrooms and had these crazy epiphanies. And you know Timothy Leary, right?
No.
So Timothy Leary was that was his boy. They were both Harvard professors, like right next to each other. Timothy Leary was like the leader of the hippie movement in the 60s. So Timothy Leary got big into LSD, making that popular, creating, pretty much curating the hippie movement for everybody, becoming the LSD prophet. Ram Dass was Richard Alpert. He went to India, became Ram Dass, went through the whole yogic lifestyle, and they both had this, they both studied psychedelics before that. They both did very, I guess you could say, studies that were, well designed. They went through a lot of in-depth research with this on themselves and other people at Harvard, and eventually it led to them getting kicked out of Harvard, losing their jobs, losing their status of Harvard professors, and going on that Timothy Leary became this prophet, LSD prophet, quote unquote, and then Ram Dass became Ram Dass, met his guru,
Wow.
and then it's a lot longer story, but it all stems from them getting into psychedelics and waking up to, wait a second, what am I doing teaching Harvard psychology? Timothy Leary says that he learned more about the human mind in his mushroom trip, his first mushroom trip, than he did in his 10 years of schooling to get his doctorate. So that's what
Wow.
compelled them to follow the path. It was through mushrooms, the epiphanies that they had on mushrooms.
Wow.
And I believe it, man. I believe it from my own experience and the people that I've talked to. It's very, very powerful. Doesn't mean it's going to. It's not a guarantee. It's not an automatic. Everybody takes mushrooms and tomorrow we're all awakened. It's not like that. It's like if you have the right mind, you have the right karma, the right circumstances for your life, the right foundation, it'll give you the key. It's just a key to open up the doors of perception, as Aldous Huxley would say, another psychedelic prophet. It's the key to open up the doors, and then from there you got to walk through yourself and follow the path yourself. But yeah, it's just it's a potential very powerful catalyst for people, but you don't need
Wow.
it. Definitely don't need it.
Okay. I watched a documentary on Netflix. I think it's called How to Have a Good Trip. Have you watched it?
Have I watched that one? I
It's
think
honestly
so.
hilarious.
Yeah,
They
yeah. They interview like a bunch
interview.
of actors. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that actually.
Yeah, that
That's the
was good.
closest I think I've gone. But I was just interested. You said they got fired from Harvard. I'd say that in
hmm
itself was an initiation to awakening, because that's
Mm,
like the biggest thing I think people attach to is their careers, right? They're like
yeah,
that's their identity. So that must have been like a blessing in disguise as well, because it
exactly.
was like
Yep.
another layer to it.
That's what Ram Dass talks about. He had the status of being the important professor at Harvard. He had an airplane. He had a
He had an
motorcycle.
airplane.
Yeah, I think he had his pilot's license. I don't
Wow.
know if he had an airplane, but I know he was a
Okay.
pilot.
Okay.
But yeah, he had this. He was a prestigious individual, and then Harvard said, "We don't need you anymore. I don't know what you guys are doing with this whole mushrooms and LSD experiments.
Mm.
You guys got to go." So he lost that just in the blink of an eye, and that's when he started to become Ram Dass. Yeah,
I love that so much.
yeah, it's a
I
very
love that.
interesting story. I'm surprised like no movies have been made about what happened in the late 50s and 60s about this whole thing. But it's a very interesting
Yeah.
story for anyone to dive into. It's the story of Richard Alpert, Timothy Leary, and also Ralph Metzner. He's involved in them too. Other people as well. But those guys were the spearheads of this current this I believe those guys were the spearheads of this current age that we're moving toward. And they even prophesized that. They even said where we were going back in the 60s and 70s. They knew what we're going to be doing right now, literally right now, as people are listening and as we're speaking. They knew this world that they were creating. And it all stems from mushrooms and LSD and other psychedelics. Very crazy. Very crazy. But yeah, they're just wake up calls. They're just tools for us if you have the right mindset to be able to get on this wavelength. And then once you're on the wavelength, you don't go back. I think it's like once you get the message,
You can't go back.
you can't go back. Yeah, there's no way.
You
I
can
could try.
try, and it's hell.
Yeah,
It's hell.
yeah. But then you're just being fake and you're being inauthentic to yourself, which is just creating more inertia. So
Have you tried?
have
I
I
tried many
tried?
times.
I mean,
Many times.
yeah, I mean, I guess I could say I still try sometimes, but then I always know there's always that internal barometer that's like, Gary, what are you doing?
I know. I
So,
think the
yeah.
human element. I know it, like, well, for me there was anger as well, like frustration, for a while
Anger
because
for what? Like, what do you mean?
um like sitting around a table of people and not relating to anything they were saying, and
Oh,
not from
yeah.
an egoic standpoint, just feeling so like everyone around you feeling a sense of disconnection. At the I think the beginning there was anger around that, or sadness, feeling
Mm,
not misunderstood. Why did I have to go through? But then you realize it's the blessing, because you're dissolving the ego. You're dissolving, like, you're allowing yourself to reach peak happiness and the true authentic things that you desire. And I think um yeah, because I think it's the ego. That's the part of you that thinks you're suffering, or the part of you that, you know, feels angry. It's the ego thinking that it's separate.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there is that as well, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's just another message for me on my path. Like once I can have this, I've had it before when I first started, the sense of almost a weird spiritual superiority complex.
Oh yeah.
Like, what this
The
person
spiritual
doesn't know.
ego.
Yeah. For me, that's just another message to know. Yeah, come on, bro. Get off your high horse. You're not that cool. Yeah, you're not as yeah,
I
being
get it.
trying to be too holy, that's another trap in itself. I think that's the last trap of this whole spiritual path, is that once you can see through the path itself, become like, don't even be attached to be okay. The last attachment is being attached to being unattached to the ego. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So we all have the ego to play with. We all have to be in this. We all have to. I have to be Gary. You have to be Ella. Everybody has to play their part here. Even though we know it's all a facade, we still have to play our part here in this movie of life. So I think if you the spiritual path is being able to be in both worlds at the same time. It's not being too holy, not trying to act too holy,
Yeah.
see yourself as too holy, but it's also on the other side of the coin, not trying to, don't get sucked into the matrix again in the darkness. We still recognize the matrix is there, the darkness is there, and the egotistical things are still going to be present just because of our conditionings in the world that we're living in. But how do you play the game with that between both sides? That's how you truly go with the flow, to truly be in the flow of being a human being here, playing our part here, the egotistical part, but also being unattached to that. But don't be attached to being unattached to that either. It's the dance between the polarities, the two poles of our being, the actor and being the identity of being the actor, the ego, I guess one could say, and the identity of being the movie at the same time. Don't get too lost in just going with the flow, man. The movie, just, the whatever's going on is going on, but then don't get too lost in being the actor either. And
Mm.
yeah, don't get too lost in being the audience, if that makes sense as well.
Mm.
So it's like this, it's this dance. It's the path to the flow is a dance.
Yeah.
It's a dance, the dance of life, I guess you could say. Hope that made sense to everybody.
Yeah. No, it did. The ego isn't, like, it's important that we do have an ego. But I think it's like a quote unquote the spiritual awakening is you're waking up to a program of who you were told you were meant to be. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You wake up
Hmm.
to the systems. You had to be this way. You had to like these interests. You had to choose this job. So I see it as like when you awaken, you're allowing your soul blueprint, your essence, to come to life, which does have its own personality, that does have its own traits, its own likes, its own interests. So then integrating that element back, but you realize your heart or your soul is the one in charge, not the ego.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Because I
who's in
think
charge here. It's not disregarding it.
yeah, exactly. Because I think some people who have like crazy ego deaths overnight, I don't think like again, not right or wrong, but I think it's a slow thing that needs to happen. I think if you have an ego death overnight, you can go actually crazy because you've completely lost sense um of being a human, I
Yeah,
guess, which
exactly.
I definitely experienced, like the ego slayed clean and not knowing who I was, and that was really scary. But um I think we, yeah, like you said, the duality, we come here. Like you said, the two parts. There's definitely a side of me I'm immensely loving, and I have so much of I love the love and light side, but there's also a part of me that's super opinionated and passionate about like what's going on in the world and like frustration, like power from that, which is like not considered super holy, right? But
Hmm.
same with you. But it's like so it's like letting go of those paradigms of what you're meant to look like or what you're meant to be, and just accepting and loving your every part of yourself, which is what we all are.
What are we?
Love.
Exactly. Yeah. We are love. We gotta love love. Yeah.
Yeah, so simple.
It's so simple. The truth is hidden in plain
It's
sight, but that's
so
what we are.
difficult. It's too simple. You're like, that can't be it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
And then
exactly.
the mind wants to overcomplicate it and be like, no, 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 there's 36 more strategies that we need to learn to in order to, and there's 25 rules. It's like, no, it's really simple.
Yeah. It's right here, right now.
The eternal now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Always will be. Always was. Always is. It's all about love.
Yeah.
That's the most beautiful thing that you can get from this. It's like, oh, that's about love. It's not about competition,
No.
status. No, it's
No.
about love. It's about being there for one another. You know, it's
Yeah.
about, and it's also about being loved. It's not about giving love. It's a two-way street. It's about
Totally.
loving yourself, loving others, others loving you,
I
and that's it.
can tell you're starting to get really happy you're saying this.
It's the truth. It's
Yeah.
the truth. You know, when you feel it, when you can just recognize that in yourself, it's like, yeah, there's something in me and others, I think, as well, that just like, yeah, that's it. And like I said before, we overcomplicate it. It's right there. It's right here. It's right here, right now, for all of us. We just have a veil put up from our conditionings, from the paradigms and the narratives. But it's right here, right now. It's love.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say? I think we can probably wrap it up on that note.
No, I feel like that was a perfect circle with what you just said there about the love thing because I lived in the Canaries for a year, which is like an island off Africa. And I remember when the word love kept coming to me, I was like, no, it can't be it, can't be it. Because I was so fearful of life myself. Um, but it just always brings me back to that, brings me back to that. But it's like one thing knowing love and then you have to integrate it. And that takes a lot
Exactly.
of bravery as well because we feel
Yep.
so unworthy of it.
Mm,
Um, so suffering has a place because it opens us up to
exactly.
love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One love.
Mhm.
One love. Well, yeah, this conversation was a pleasure. I really appreciate your time, your wisdom, and energy that you brought to me and to the world. Anybody that's going to listen to this, definitely would like to talk to you again. I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg, but yeah, this was cool.
Yeah.
I
Thank you, Gary.
enjoyed it. Yeah, of course, of course. Um, Other than that, thanks for everybody listening. One love. Namaste.
Namaste.